Who stays the same? This is the biggest no-brainer, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even if they get Aaron Rodgers, by the way, they're still going to win 9-10 games and lose in the first round of the AFC playoffs. Evan Cohen, you can listen to him here on Unsportsmanlike. I like to call Evan the godfather of ESPN West Palm Beach. He was on Unsportsmanlike this morning with Chris Canty and Michelle Smallman, specifically talking about Aaron Rodgers. And he has kind of I'm going to call it a conspiracy theory. He has a conspiracy theory about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers.
The NFL clearly is telling you that Aaron Rodgers is on the Steelers. I think the NFL clearly knows. I think they have more information, obviously, than we do. And they're scheduling the games based on the matchups, based on the excitement.
And the matchups Evan is talking about there, they play the Jets week 1. And then later on in the season, they play the Packers, like middle of the
prime time.
They play the Packers in prime time. Absolutely, Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I agree with Evan. Now, it was a long-form cut, so I only played Evan there. Michelle and Canty disagreed, saying the NFL has no idea. I completely agree with Evan. Everyone knows that Aaron Rodgers is going to that team. And one of our callers called into ESPN 106.3. I forgot his name, but he said, Riz, nonetheless, Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to do mini camp. He doesn't want to do all that garbage. He'll be there at training camp. I agree. I think Rodgers doesn't want to do any of the stuff until training camp. I think he's going to arrive in Pittsburgh training camp. That's my take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. But
wrong organization to do that for.
Listen,
I don't think they'll deal with that. I think they'll roll with the guys they have.
Christian, they are desperate. They have no choice. You're going to start Mason Rudolph?
Yeah.
No. You're not starting Mason Rudolph. You'll win 7 games, 6 games if you start Mason Rudolph. Mike Tomlin will finally get a losing season. And Tomlin's a great coach. All right? As a fan of a team in the same division, I'd love to have Tomlin as a coach, okay? But he can only do so much with what he has. Now, you talk to Steeler fans out there, at least my Steeler fan buddies, my buddy Zach, he's been on the Fire Tomlin bandwagon since they lost to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars in 2016, 2017. Mediocre Mike is his nickname to some people in Pittsburgh. I am on the opposite spectrum of that. I think it's tough when you don't have a franchise quarterback, but Steeler fans that are out on Tomlin are arguing that even at Ben Roethlisberger at his peak, Tomlin was unable to take that team deep into the playoffs. And I rebuttal with, you went to another Super Bowl in 2010, lost to a Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, and you won a Super Bowl with Tomlin. The best NFL game I ever seen in my life, by the way, kills me to say that. But the best NFL game I've ever seen in my life was the Super Bowl between the Steelers and the Cardinals. It was 2008. I was in 8th grade, and Larry Fitzgerald, Kurt Warner, James Harrison, Ben Roethlisberger, Santonio Holmes. It had an ending game-winning toe-tap touchdown. The drive before that, Larry Fitzgerald and company scored on like a 60-yard touchdown. The game had everything you wanted. But Steeler fans will complain to you that was darn near 20 years ago. So I can't take the Mike Tomlin slander, but I am going to say the team that stays the same are the Steelers because they have no choice. I don't think Aaron Rodgers can Aaron Rodgers come in there and throw for 3,800 yards? Yeah, but they're not beating the Bills. They're not beating Kansas City. They're not beating Baltimore. Dare I say, they might not even beat a team like Houston, who I think is going to be better this year. So that's where I'm at with the Steelers. I think it's more of the same with them. 9-10 wins, playoff berth, lose in the first round. Am I crazy for that?
You're not crazy for that because that's like you said, the MO. That is what the Steelers do. They are good enough to not be bad, but they're never great. They're never great since their Super Bowl run. They wasted a lot of Big Ben years. But I honestly, with this Aaron Rodgers thing, I think the NFL is making an educated guess where right now, if Aaron Rodgers were to sign with the team and be that team's starting quarterback, the only team and organization that kind of makes sense is the Steelers, and that's just taking a shot there where it makes a little bit of sense and it adds some juice. Even if Aaron Rodgers is no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler, you still have a Super Bowl rematch in prime time with the Packers and Steelers, if anything. And then the Jets-Steelers game that's week 1, that's not in prime time.
Dude, the Steelers are great. I almost said great watch, but as far as views, like people call the Cowboys America's team, it might be Pittsburgh, dude. There are so many Steeler fans around the country. Ton of Steeler fans here. I couldn't believe how many people have come up to me down here in South Florida and West Palm Beach. I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, Riz, love listening to your show, but I'm a Steeler fan. So many people say that to me down here. Steeler Nation spreads long and wide, and they will always be a team people want to watch.
And that's a good organization. That is a functional organization. That's an organization that I don't think is going to play the little games with Aaron Rodgers and beat around the bush and wait. No, I think that they would rather, instead of win 1 or 2 more games this year with Aaron Rodgers, lose 1 or 2 less games because they don't have Aaron Rodgers, because they have guys in the building right now that are bought into the system. Mason Rudolph bought into the system. Criticize his specs, criticize his stats, criticize everything you can about former Oklahoma State Cowboy Mason Rudolph you want, but he's a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he knows that organization, he knows that system. This is not going to happen. I honestly do not think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Steeler, because they are one of the few organizations in the NFL that won't make that mistake to bending to his will at this stage of his career.
Christian, my last pushback on it, then does he retire? Where does he go?
I think
every other team has maybe, all right, New Orleans could make sense because they need granted, unless they plan on starting their 3rd-round pick that they just drafted out of Louisville, they're going to need a quarterback. So unless he goes to the Saints, where else is he going to go?
Yeah, retire. Retire is what I would say is going to happen to him.
I don't think he's going to
retire, and then maybe a mid-season quarterback gets hurt. We see it all the time. Desperate, and maybe they have a good roster.
But like
they need a quarterback break in case of emergency. Here's Aaron Rodgers.
You got to stay in shape, though. Like, is Rodgers going to be willing to, like, if that's the plan, like,
quarterback, you don't got to stay in too good a shape. You think Joe Flacco's running wind sprints?
Listen, I have Flacco fever still. Not so much anymore after the Browns drafted 2 quarterbacks, but at the same time, I understand the point.
Stay in shape. You saw Ben Roethlisberger not be in shape for about 5 years at the end of his Steelers career.
Hall of Fame quarterback, man. Roethlisberger was Dude, Roethlisberger would eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and have 4 defenders dragging on him and throw for a 60-yard touchdown. Roethlisberger was a different breed, but I understand the point. I don't know if Rodgers is going to want to stay in that kind of shape while not being on a team. But to your point, is he going to have to do it? I don't know. These are questions I don't have the answer to. But my only pushback on that would be, if not the Steelers, where else other than New Orleans?